Hey, you
How
look
you doing?
lovely. How are you?
Good. I was just sitting out in the sun, so I'm all nice and zenned out right
Nice,
now.
nice. That's the best. You got to get that sunshine. I always try to get it in the morning too, because it's definitely like it gets so much harsher during the day.
Yes, yes. It's
Mhm.
so it's so healing for me, like to feel the sun on my skin. It's so huge. So yeah, I needed
Yeah.
it.
Oh, definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining me. How's everything else been for you?
Good. Where every day is a new adventure, and I'm just trying to be really grateful each morning for what I do have and
Mhm.
hang in there and be able to help couples right now because, like we're
Yeah.
talking today, that's totally really important to me. How about you? How you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, things are good. We're back to doing the long distance relationship now, so
Oh
that's a bit
wow.
tough. He just flew back on Wednesday, so
Okay. You
yeah,
got safe?
yeah, he got home safely. He was
Okay.
kind of annoyed though because he had a direct flight from Denver to London, but then they put him on a flight from Denver to Dallas and then to London. But
Mhm.
the internal flight, the Denver to Dallas, it was like a full flight. And I was like, they're not even following CDC guidelines. And like, because they're supposed to do like a seat and then a space and then a
Yeah.
seat. And it was full flight. So I was just like, take
Oh, God.
pictures, send a complaint, like, don't
Yeah.
touch anything.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
And hopefully he'll have space to like quarantine, like when he gets there. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Oh gosh, that
Yeah.
must be so stressful.
Yeah, it's been crazy. So now we're just like trying to adjust like back to the long distance thing, but it's just like we're looking at flights for me too, but it's just like oh, it's kind of scary to like think about buying one only to get turned away at the border. So I'm just
Yeah.
like, let's just wait until there's more traveling going on. Like we'll be fine.
Well, it's such a good
Mhm.
attitude to have. I think that's such a big challenge that long distance relationships are having right now. It's like there's
Mhm.
not even certainty of when you can have that next
Yeah,
interaction, you know?
yeah, no, exactly. Hey, how are you?
Hi!
There she is. Um, okay, so thank you everyone for joining. So I'm live here in Denver with Molly from NYC. I just want to thank you all again for joining me on these Tuesdays and Thursdays High Achieving Hustler series. Still working on the name, but I kind of like the way that one sounds. But I just want to bring more value to all of you young professionals and entrepreneurs. So I'm super, super excited about today's guest. So Molly's been featured in Forbes, she's been seen in Thrive, and she's absolutely crushing it in what she does. So she's worked with celebs and CEOs, and I'm just super excited about all the gold she's going to be dropping today. um, so I want to introduce you all to Molly. So Molly is a couple psychotherapist for top performing professionals globally. She's an executive coach, she's a speaker, and she's a founder at ME Therapy in NYC. She specializes in helping high-powered professionals achieve long-term success in their personal lives, and she has worked with individuals like government leaders, as Fortune 500 executives, celebrities, media personalities, and many others who are seeking improved intimacy and communication in their romantic relationships and marriages. She caters to successful individuals with executive coaching services, aiming to elevate their performance through improved communication skills and clarity around vision. And so, with that being said, Molly, I just want to thank you again for being on today. And I'm just going to rapid fire some questions because I know you're just going to
Yes.
give us so much gold.
Let's do it. I love talking relationships and love, so I'm so game.
Yay, awesome. So, first of all, can you tell us briefly, like how did you get started?
Sure, sure. So I actually started as a therapist. I started working with children in the beginning of my career. I was really passionate about helping them thrive. I was working in schools and trying to help them adapt, especially, I was working with children who had autism and had learning disabilities and who were really struggling to academically succeed and then like interpersonally succeed. And I noticed after working with these children who I had a lot of connection with and I really enjoyed that the people who really needed support was also their parent
Yeah.
figures and being able to get along with one another, but also being able to help their child thrive through all these challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that there was so much conflict that was happening between parents in their marriage that helping the child meant helping the couple. So I
Mm-hmm.
started moving into helping couples and I'm very entrepreneurial mindset myself with the businesses that you mentioned and tended to immediately gear towards people who also had a similar mentality. They wanted more out of life instead of less. So I
Mm-hmm.
started specifically working with couples who are very high achieving and high powered. And that's how I got here.
That's awesome. Oh, this is like perfect, right? um, what tips do you have for power couples, that maybe want to start a business together or they have one already?
Yeah.
How do they separate like work and relationships?
absolutely great question. And I love this topic because there are so many couples, I think, especially right now, starting to think like, how do we work together to make financial stability? And then like, how do we work together to like get to spend more time with one another and enjoy one another? Exactly. I think you guys are doing something special like that too, right?
I mean, we're trying to. We've scheduled like Netflix dates, right?
Uh-huh.
Just because like we are working together, so we're just like on each other all day, all the time.
100%. So I think one of the things that's really important, if you have not started the business yet, even if you have started the business, is always need to come back to do again, is think about role delineation. So getting really clear about who is doing what and who is responsible for what. I think what's really important for people who are high achieving is they want to feel that success and satisfaction from completion of the thing that they have done themselves. So if both of you are high achieving and high power, it's super important to give both of you the opportunity to feel that success of like, I envisioned something and I completed it and I did it really well with a sense of mastery.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So being able to get a sense of like, what's your lane and what's my lane can really help make both of you feel successful about achieving the micro goals of the larger picture of the business. So I really think that that is super important for boundaries within the business. But I think there's a second question in there about boundaries outside of work, right?
Exactly.
So if you're struggling, especially right now, let's say you're living in the same home with one another. I know that's not happening for everyone right now, but being able to figure out when you're putting on which hat is the way I like to think about it. So if you're having a business discussion when we're at dinner or at lunch or having just a call, then we need to be really clear that I'm wearing right now the hat of business hat. And we're not having an interpersonal discussion, but hey, I want to shift our conversation to talk about X, Y, and Z thing for the business. Whether we're scheduling a discussion just for that or we're saying these 10 minutes are just focused on that, it's really important because I'm sure you can relate to this. It's going to feel really different if your business partner tells you to do something than when your significant other tells you to do something. You know what I mean? So
100%.
Right? So it's really, really helpful when you're able to just even verbalize, hey, I'm switching hats now. Hey, I want to switch this topic now, so that the other person can start to hear you as business partner rather than significant other.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. Well, you answered my next question about boundaries, right?
Hey, good.
I think that's huge just because, like, you know, I'll even just speak from my experience too. I feel like there are times where, you know, we are just having dinner, we are trying to watch a movie, but it's just like, hey, can you remember that XYZ? But we've had to, like, you know, establish those boundaries where we're like, okay, just, you know, we'll move all work conversation to like Slack or something where it's completely all work related. And then we'll just use this time for us. Do you have any other tips around setting boundaries?
Oh, I love that. I'm going to give you another one that I look for the business. I really love using Voxer. That's been super helpful for me. Do you know that app?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
the
Voxer.
Voice walkie-talkie. I just discovered it recently.
It's such a game changer. It literally changes everything. So if we're going back to my point earlier and then combining it with what you just brought up, I think if you use Voxer or use a certain space like Slack as the space for that conversation for business, and then you're agreeing that phone calls are mainly our interaction, or if you're at home, let's talk about a couple who's living together, right? So we're talking about a couple that's possibly long distance here.
Yeah.
For a couple who's living together and working together, then it might also figure out like delineation of space. So our discussions in this space, in our office space, becomes the space for discussions around work. When we transition to the dining room, or when we transition to the dining room for a meal, that's when we're having a discussion as a couple. So whether it's space within technology or space within your home, I think being really clear about where are we connecting and in what capacity can make a huge difference for boundaries.
I think that's great advice. I feel like environment's everything.
Yeah, 100%. Even like the cue to transition environments can be a big help for a couple.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to try that, the cues, because like I think sometimes I assume a lot. That's not great.
Yeah, I think most people do though, right? Like we, especially when you've been with your partner for a while, you start to go like, I know this person. They know me. I can read their mind, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And in one way, you totally can because you know them so well. And on the other hand, like we as humans are changing all the time. So staying curious about what's happening with our partner and within ourselves is a huge component for our ability to like keep the communication flowing without the assumption happening as much.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's awesome. Um, okay, so another question. What
Yeah.
if one partner is the hustler? And this may create like an interesting dynamic, but it's important to be understanding of each other, right? And supportive of each other. What advice do you have for couples in this boat where, like one may see the vision and the other one's trying to like learn the vision?
Yes, I love this question. I think this is really good. So I think that if you're in that setup, being really patient with the discussion, especially like the preliminary and as you're working through a discussion, is essential. So one of the things that I hear a lot is like in that situation, a lot of frustration from the hustler's perspective that the other person just like doesn't get it, that they're not supportive, that they're not on your side. And often I found that that's not actually the case. What's happening instead is your partner is afraid, doesn't really have the ability to be a visionary in the same way that you do, and can't see how to take a larger picture into smaller steps. Those are just examples. That might not be your specific partner, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's trying to understand where they're coming from without being reactive that's really helpful. Hey, tell me more about that reaction. Okay, so you're telling me that this is something you want me to slow down on and even stop. Before we like come to the decision of what's going to happen, tell me what's behind that for you. I'm curious why you're having that reaction or what is in that reaction. And you may learn a lot from your partner who goes, hey, we talked about buying a house or our second house. How are we going to deal now with this huge down payment for this business investment in your website and the office space? And they may need your ability to kind of break those pieces down to be able to sign on.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great advice.
Yeah.
That's really good. So obviously, like with right now, it's kind of a weird time with everything. What tips do you have right now for couples that are spending like every waking minute with each other? Because I know, some of us still have those stay-at-home orders in place.
Yeah. Listen, I think there's so many things you can do, but number one is like be patient with yourself and kind with one another. Like no one is getting along all the time. Like don't let anyone lie to you on the internet. You know what I mean? Because like there's no way you're dating yourself, which is a great thing. I always come back to that, right? It's a good thing to date someone who's different than you, but when you're dating someone that's different than you, it makes it exciting and intriguing. It also makes it exhausting and frustrating, right? Because you're coping with all these differences.
Yeah,
so
totally.
So I think it's really helpful to be patient with yourself and with one another. And then go back to basics. Like, have fun with each other. Turn on music and make a dance party in the kitchen. Have a race, who's going to get laundry done first. It's simple, small stuff, but it's a way to kind of just keep things a little interesting. And then make sure also that you're leaving time for quality connection. And I think that's something that gets like really lost in the shuffle when you're just with each other all the time. So that could be like bookmarking out an hour, or it doesn't even have to be a timeline. It can just be an evening, and do something where you're asking each other deeper questions. Like, what are your life dreams right now? What's your biggest fear right now? And just stay in that intimacy with one another with intentional carve out.
That's awesome. I feel like a lot of it is like totally bringing it back to basics.
Yeah, it is. And I think like, especially when we're flooded right now, we're overwhelmed and exhausted, it can be really hard to remember those basics. So like, I really believe everyone knows the answers. It's just hard to like come back to them and re-access them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did have one question that was submitted as well. So what about with power couples that, these guys are in business together, but they submitted a question about like, well, they've also got kids. And now that, there's no school, they're also homeschooling. So they're like taking turns, like they're taking turns, like, running the business and then also homeschooling the kids, and they're just trying to make it fair and even. But do you have any advice for them? Because I feel like they're in like especially like the mom. So she was like one of my friends, but she was telling me like, I have like a severe case of superwoman syndrome. But she couldn't make it on today, so she was like definitely gonna catch the replay, but I wanted to make sure I asked her for you.
I'm sorry, I lost you for a minute. So I got the question, and then I missed a little bit about the kitchen. Say that again.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, she's one of my girlfriends. So I wanted to make sure I asked you this since she couldn't make it today, so she's gonna catch the replay. But yeah, so she was telling me, she's like, I have a severe case of superwoman syndrome, but they also run a business together, but they've got the kiddos. They're trying to like take turns, like, running the business and running, the homeschooling as well. But
totally. And similar to what I was saying before, like patience with yourself is so essential, especially in that situation, right? Because you're being asked to not only do everything you normally were doing, but now you're asked to be doing like another person's career, right? You're asked to be a teacher all of a sudden. Like, that's not what you signed up for as your career. Yeah. And all of a sudden you literally have another occupation. In addition, you're still like parenting, and then your kids not only need like you for logistics, but they need you for nurture and engagement and fun and love. And it's a lot of pressure, you know? And I think it's also logistically in a home, a lot of difficulty. So having patience with yourself and your partner is really essential. Like, maybe more than anything else I could suggest. A lot of people are talking like, have a concrete schedule, have things structured. And I can share a few of those things with you, but I think the number one is like having grace for having a day that's hard, or multiple days that are hard, or hours that are hard, because that's going to happen, you know? But I think outside of that, going back to the idea of delegation of tasks can make things a lot simpler. So since I'm talking to all of my favorite people, all my, you know, entrepreneurs and business people out there, the same way we set up our business with systems is what I recommend doing for your relationship, as well as especially if you have kids, right? So if you think about it, we all have a pathway in terms of how like a new client onboards, or, you know, maybe how we're dealing with tracking our finances, like the CFO role for our business. And there might be different ways you have variations of managing that, but for the most part, you have a pathway in which it works if your business is successful and moving fluidly. The same thing goes for your relationship. So we were talking before about how to deal with communication when you're working together and you're also in a relationship. We talked about systems, right? Like, where are you communicating? How are you doing it? When are you doing it? And the same thing can happen with kids. So it's going to be fluid because kids are fluid, right? But even having an idea of like, okay, these are the 10 chores we have to get done daily in the house. We have to get done, you know, making food, cleaning the dishes, like maybe it's, you know, dealing with getting kids literally dressed or showered, depending on how old your children are, and having a really clear discussion with your partner of like, what are our systems in place? What are things that we can delegate out to our kids, depending on their age and appropriateness? What are things that we're going to divvy up, and how are we going to fit that into our flow of the day as structured as possible, knowing that it's never going to be perfectly that. I think that can be a huge game changer for a couple.
That's amazing. I feel like you just basically summed up our entire Q&A on like maximizing your success in love and business with just that, just like systems, you know, like how we do it in our businesses. It's exactly like you said, you know, we just got to bring it here too. That's awesome. So I love to end these Q&As with action steps. So what action steps would you recommend for our power couples, you know, that may be struggling right now, or, you know, maybe they just want to take it to that next level with respect to everything that's going on too?
100%. So I would give the same advice to both those pairs, and I would do the same thing for business advice as well. Okay. So this hopefully will be really easy for you to apply everywhere in your life. I would sit down with yourself first and just do an assessment of what you think needs to be further maximized and what's going really efficiently and effectively. So in your relationship, you know, where are you really happy is another way to look at it, or feeling really fulfilled, and where are ways in which you're feeling barriers. And you could do the same thing for that last example as parents in the family dynamic. Where am I feeling like it's really easy, smooth flowing, and where is it feeling choppy and really difficult? And once you have that assessment down, I would meet with your partner and have them individually do that same assessment on their own, and then discuss together, where do you think you have mutually identified areas that need a little bit more support and progress, and also like, where can you give yourself a pat on the back for doing like such a good job, right?
Totally.
So once you define those things that are not working as fluidly and as functionally, then it's coming out with action steps for what needs to happen. So in that last example for the parents, let's say that one of the things that's not going well is all the chores that need to happen on a daily basis. It's developing a new system for a different approach to how you've managed it. There's not a better approach. You would have thought of it already. It's just playing with a different system until you find something that flows and works effectively. I'm also always happy to help with some coaching calls around that, but definitely for sure, that is where it would go for action-oriented steps.
That's awesome. Mic drop right there. That was so good. Well, thank you so much for your advice and just sharing like your tips and wisdom around this too. Because I feel like it's one of those things where like, you know, we tend to want to do it all, right? And it's just one of those things where we don't think about, but I feel like that's also one of the areas that like suffers the most as well. So this
Totally.
is really good to continue working on it and stuff too. So, for, for my high achieving power couples out there that are seeking more advice or, seeking mentorship and coaching from you, how can they get in touch?
Sure. The best way to find me is on Instagram. So just at my name, at MOLLIEELIAS, like Sam, OF like Frank, and send me a DM and just let me know that you're looking for coaching or support. I'm also doing a free masterclass this Thursday, so they can show up there and get some more information. But I'm always happy to help and provide some answers and support. And always happy to talk to you. This was so
Yeah,
fun.
I know, right? I had such a great time when we first met too. I was just like, I just want to feel like we're just hanging out. So this is good.
Exactly. And I love the like really rapid fire approach
Yeah.
here. This is perfect.
No, totally. I just wanted to get the most out of your time too, because I was just like, oh, you're going to drop so much gold. So
Sweet.
this is awesome. Any final thoughts from you?
Be patient with yourself, be kind. There are always ways to make it more efficient, more effective, and optimize your relationship. And I'm always game to help, and there are so many resources out there. So just give yourself some grace as you're figuring it out.
Yay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on. And everyone that's tuning in, or if you're catching the replay, I hope you took a lot of notes because there's a lot of good stuff in here. But most importantly, I hope you take action on a lot of this too. Because like action is everything, right? Talkers talk all day long, but if you're not taking action and doing the work, you're not going to see any results or any change for that matter. But yeah, continue to give me feedback as always, or if you'd like me to have Mollie on again, would love to have her. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for today. So wishing you all a really great day, and thank you again, Mollie. This was awesome. But yeah, definitely talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Bye, guys.
Sounds good. Bye.